Hello, friends. Welcome to another Policy Pulse episode. In this particular episode, we discuss about, although the caption basically is who pays for the dog park, but the central issue is not about dog or bicycle riders. It's about the municipality's cost allocation. Currently, municipality across the country, the property taxes are going through the roof, and there is no sight of anytime soon coming down. And there are many factors for that, but this particular example is one of the example of many other bigger issue that facing the city's cost pressure. But for a property tax owners or taxpayers in general, it's important that they understand what those costs are incurred by them through the city's budgeting model, which doesn't really show a great deal of transparency because they're all hidden under the general kind of a category of budget line item. Each of these items should be more transparent, and taxpayers should be able to understand exactly how much, for example, your costing related to dogs or bike paths or things like that. So we need to have a more transparency and demand from the politician that they should come to the table with frank and more accountable numbers so people can understand how they're voting and who they are voting for. And again, it's not about picking the provincial municipality government. It's actually the problem lies also with the provincial government and the federal government. But for this discussion, it's just an example to highlight that the transparency problem. So dog owners is not attacking the pets, or bike riders is not about attacking your free ride. It's about all of us paying a fair share of tax dollar. So we all know, including any group that affects this type of municipality cost, they know exactly where we stand, and the informations are transparent. So let's look into the detail of this episode. And if you have any other topic in mind, feel free to let me know, and I'll do more of those topic in future episode. Again, this is just a kind of a tip of the iceberg. It's not the whole thing. We'll cover more bigger issues, which is entails larger amount of municipal budget, like a policing and the road maintenance and other thing. But we'll deal with that in future. So let's get into the detail. Every Canadians pay municipal taxes. That's a fact of life. And every year, those taxes fund animal shelters, dog parks, pound services, and animal control officers, services that exist almost entirely for the benefit of people who own pet. Now, again, this is not against the pet series. Rather, it's a broader issue of the funds allocation by the taxpayers. But this is an example because everybody knows and loves pets. So they also fund bike lanes, and everybody loves the bikes, of course, and cycling infrastructure used by a group that, at least last count, represent less than 1% of Canadian commuters. Today, on Policy Pulse, we're asking a simple question that sounds simple but touches something deep in public finance theory. When public money pays for services that benefits only a narrow group, who should actually foot the bill? Less than 1% of the Canadian commuters say it slowly, don't rush the setup. The principle we're examining today is called cost allocation, and it sits at the center of debates about fairness, accountability, and transparency in how government spend money. So this is more of a broader topic, but we're using as I mentioned, a simpler, easy to understand issue. The core tension this some public services are genuinely universal. Roads, fire protection, drinking water, everyone uses them and everyone pays. And that's coherent and that makes sense. But a growing category of municipal spending is neither universal nor avoidable. It serves a subset of residents while being funded by all of them. Pet services, for example, cycling infrastructure, recreational facility with a low community-wide usage, and the question no one on the city council wants to answer clearly is that fair? Not a fair in a partisan sense, fair in the sense of basic fiscal transparency, the principle that those who impose a cost on public purse should bear a proportionate share of it. Let's start with what this actually cost. For example, in Toronto, the gross annual operating budget for animal services, shelter care, licensing, enforcement, animal control was about $15.9 million in 2024. That's roughly $5.48 per resident, paid by every single taxpayer in the city, whether they own a pet or not. In Montreal, the city signed a 10-year, $157.9 million contract with Pro Animal Group to centralize animal shelter services across all 19 boroughs. That's roughly $15.8 million per year on average, about 8 times the $2 million a year the previous model cost, from tax dollars collected from everyone. On cycling issue, Montreal spent about $30 million in 1 year to add or upgrade approximately 60 kilometers of bike paths. So that's about $500,000 per kilometer. Toronto's more recently proposed bike infrastructure runs closer to $1.46 million per kilometer. These are not trivial numbers, and they are paid through the same property tax base that funds school, transit, emergency services. And British Columbia, I haven't touched that number, but you get the picture. So these are all proportionately paid by all taxpayers, but enjoyed by only a narrow group. Here is where the structural imbalance becomes visible. Municipal animal services, including shelters, pounds, and animal control, are funded primarily through the general property taxes, not through pet licensing fees. In Toronto, pet licensing fees recovered only a fraction of animal services cost. The 2024 municipal licensing and standard budget shows revenue well below gross expenditures. The picture on cycling infrastructure is similar. Bike lanes are funded through municipal capital and operating budgets, drawing from the same general fund paid by all taxpayers. There is no dedicated cycling levy. There is no equivalent to a vehicle registration fee for bicycles, no insurance, and there is the core asymmetry. Drivers pay fuel taxes and vehicle registration fees that feed back at least partially into road funding and insurance cost. A large amount of funding is through the insurance. When the bike riders, if they get into accident, they can claim from the insurance company, but it's not other way around. So it's a bigger problem. And of course, these are not very interesting topic for the politicians because they just want to hold on to their, uh, I guess, specific group of block voters. So whenever it addresses a bigger portion of the society, they stay away. So that's why our politics becoming more divisive, and politicians love to pit one group another, one against the other. So none of that mechanism really exists for bicycling. As I mentioned, the federal tax fund transfer approximately $2 million per year to municipality, funded by the motorist, not the bicyclist. Let's trace how this money actually moves. Every property owner in a city like Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver pays property tax. That tax goes into a general revenue fund. That fund is allocated across departments by the city council, including animal services, parks, and transportation. When the city builds a dog park or expands a cycling lane, the money comes from this shared pool. Now compare this to another system, the user pay model. A dog licensing fee in Toronto currently runs about $50.50 per year for a spayed or neutered dog, a figure that has remained largely static while the cost of animal services climbs. At that rate, the system is structurally underfunded by design. The non-pet owners who writes a property tax check to the city of all of this city is paying for the dog park that neighbors retriever uses um, every Sunday morning or weekend evening. So you get the picture. That is not inherently wrong, but it deserves to be said clearly and frankly and honestly and accounted for more transparently. Here is how the current system actually works and where the accountability gap exists. Animal services are categorized as municipal services under the provincial legislation. Cities are required to provide them, but the cost recovery model is left to the municipal discretion. Very few Canadian cities have conducted a transparent, published analysis of what their pet-related services cost versus what they recover from pet owners. Cycling infrastructure falls under transportation capital budget. It is prioritized through multi-year capital plans, and the justification used, health benefits, emission reduction, traffic decongestion, those are real, but the policy conversion rarely includes a transparent accounting of who bears the capital cost and who captures the benefit. The structural question this creates is not should we have dog parks or should we build bike lanes? Those are separate conversation, and politicians should put those things clearly to the public and let the public decide. Politicians should not make those transformative decisions. The structural question is who should pay and how much should cost recovery contribute. Again, most people do not have all of this information, the ordinary taxpayers like me and you, and therefore it's hard for them to be organized and complain about it because they don't know. Now let's look at what other countries are doing about it. The policy tools to address this exist. They are not theoretical. Graduated pet licensing fee scaled to actual service cost are used in cities like Calgary, which licenses dogs at a rate between $37.5 and $97 per year, depending on sterilization status of the pet. But even those fees fall far short of the full cost recovery. In the UK, only Northern Ireland still requires a dog license. Great Britain abolished its scheme in 1987. I wonder why. Because low compliance and administration cost outstripped the revenue. A design lesson in itself. A user pay fee only works if it is priced and enforced seriously. Australia, on the other hand, has a more developed user pay model for animal registration, with fees in some states tied to actualized local service costs. On cycling, the Netherlands, everybody knows about Netherlands, the world's most cycling-intensive country, funds about cycling infrastructure through national government budget on explicit argument that cycling delivers measurable public health and congestion externalities, etc. That is a principal policy position, and that's administered by the national, so that's a different category. It is, however, a position that should be clearly stated, not obscured behind general capital budgets where allocation is invisible to the average taxpayer. Policy question for Canada is not whether these services are valuable, it is whether the funding model is honest, transparent, and accountable to the taxpayers who are paying for it. Now let's put some numbers on the beneficiary side. In Canada, roughly 39%, again these numbers are just ballpark rounded, and the households own dog, about 39 to 40%. Approximately 60% own a dog or cat, which means approximately 40% of the household own no dog or cat at all and derive zero direct benefit from the municipal animal services, animal shelters, dog parks, and animal bylaw enforcement costs related. On cycling issue, Statistic Canada reported that as of May 2023, only 182.9 thousand, about 182,900 Canadians commuted primarily by bicycle, which represents less than 1% of the commuting population. So, a service caused by roughly 39% of dog-owning household is funded by 100% of the taxpayers. An infrastructure category used by less than 1% of commuters draws from the same municipal capital pool that serves everyone. Those numbers don't automatically resolve the policy question, but they reframe it. And in a well-functioning democracy, taxpayers deserve to see those numbers before their council votes on the budget. Again, because of the highly complexity, technicality, and bureaucratic nature of the governance structure of the municipality, ordinary people don't have time to address any of their concern. So these are all by design. So we need to find a way to resolve and reform this structure that benefits a highly specialized narrow group of special interest group in the country, or in this case, in the municipality areas. Now let's look at the proponent's point of view. Let's be fair to the counter-argument. Because there is a real one, the strongest case for general taxation of these services rests on three pillars. First, externalities. Pet ownership has documented social benefits. Companionship, public health, reduce isolation in aging population. Animal control services protect the entire community from dangerous animals, regardless of ownership status. These are legitimate public good arguments. Second, cross-subsidization. Most public services are cross-subsidized. Non-drivers benefit from road networks through supply chains and emergency services. Non-parents pay for schools. The logic of the collective contribution has a long and legitimate pedigree in public finance. Third, cycling and public health. Cycling infrastructure reduces traffic, lowers emission, and improves population health outcomes. That's easy to see. Benefits that accrue broadly, not just to cyclists. This is a well-established economic argument. Uh, all three of these arguments are real and they belong to this conversation. And we all experience all those effects, and we know that they're valid, and we should be respectful to those matter. But the central question is not about their beneficial side of it, it's the cost allocation again. Here is what the critic says. Here is where the critic mainly lands on, in my view, and it is not trivial for sure. The problem is not whether dog parks and bike lanes should exist. The problem is transparency and accountability. If the public good argument is genuine, which I believe it is, city council should be able to state it explicitly and clearly with the data. What is the public health benefit of a bike lane and how does it compare to its capital cost per user? What does the average non-pet owning taxpayers in Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal, and other cities contribute to animal services annually? And do they know what they are? In most Canadian cities, that analysis does not exist in any publicly accessible form or meaningful way. The costs are buried in consolidated municipal budgets, as I mentioned before. The cost recovery rates are not published as a standard line item. The beneficiary analysis is never tabled. And that is the accountability failure this episode is about. And that's the central point. It is not about attacking dog parks. It is about the principle that public money spent for the benefit of a defined group should be tracked, disclosed, and designed with an honest cost recovery model so that taxpayers can evaluate whether their money is spent fairly, wisely, and effectively. Here is a bigger picture of what a would be a more accountable model could look like. On pet services side, actuarial pet licensing calculate the full cost of animal services per municipality, such as shelter, control, enforcement, parks maintenance, etc., and set licensing fees to recover a meaningful percentage of that cost from the pet owning population. Even a 30%, 40% cost recovery rate in Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver would generate millions of dollars from the pet owners annually, reducing the burden on non-pet owning taxpayers. And I don't believe that the pet owners would resist that because they are fair-minded people. I'm sure they would be happy to incur that cost. On cycling side, transparent capital accounting required that municipal cycling infrastructure spending be reported separately in annual budget documents with per kilometer costs, projected usage, and a public good rationale that council must vote on explicitly, not buried in a road's capital budget line, which most people don't have any idea what they are. These are not radical reform ideas or new concept. These are just same old thing, but we need to have people revisit this, to have them look at the issue of penny wise pound foolish, is how much of their monies are wasted. So not look at the pennies. Several Canadian cities already publish dog park cost per user analysis internally. The gap is public disclosure. So the principle is simple. If public money is spent primarily for the benefit of a defined group, the public and that group should be able to see the accounting and go from there. It's not too much to ask. So here's our usual segment of winners and losers, in this case beneficiaries and cost bearer. Let's be precise about who wins and who bears the cost under the current system. Those who benefit without proportionate contribution, definitely pet owners who pay a licensing fee well below the cost of services they receive, cyclists who use the capital infrastructure without contributing through any cycling equivalent of a vehicle registration fee, and of course there is no insurance. That's another big topic that we should probably cover in another future episode. Residents in high usage dog park areas whose neighborhood receive a disproportionate share of park's budget, those who bear cost without proportionate benefit, non-pet owning households, approximately 40% of them, who fund animal services through property taxes, non-cycling commuters who fund bike infrastructure through the same capital pool they use for roads, transit, and sidewalks, rural and urban residents who may rarely access the urban cycling network but share the capital costs. For example, people coming from Kelowna or any other in northern cities to Vancouver downtown core. This is not an argument that winners are villains in this particular case. It is an argument that the current accounting makes these flaws invisible. And in a democracy, invisible fiscal flaws are an accountability problem. It's more of a perception that creates. So we should be more transparent and give people the opportunity to see how their monies are spent and what they're willing to spend and recover part of the cost. So here's my verdict section, and here I land on the question of fair public cost allocation is not a left-right political question or issue. It is a transparency question. If dog parks and bike lanes are good public policy, as I mentioned, and there are reasonable arguments that they are, then the case for them should be made transparently with the numbers on the table to back them up, not concealed inside a consolidated financial budgets where the average taxpayer has no visibility into who benefits from what they are paying for. Canada has a less than 1% of commuters using cycling infrastructure, but 100% of the taxpayers funding it. Only 39 to 40% of the household own a dog, but 100% fund those animal services cost. Those numbers don't make the services wrong, they make the accounting question inescapable. Principle is old and non-controversial, of course. Public funds should be allocated transparently. It's a common sense, it's a given, with the accountability to all taxpayers, not just to the groups that benefit from them. It's called fiscal fairness. I'm sure all of you heard that before and know about it. And in 2026, Most Canadian municipalities are nowhere near meeting that standard. That's at least my read and my feeling. Um, Tell me your experience and your thoughts on this matter, and I'll see you on the next episode. Thank you.